This man and his dog spent 5 years walking around the world. This is a story about the real-life Forrest Gump and his furry companion. New Jersey native Tom Turcich and his dog Savannah traveled around the world on foot for 7 years. Their journey was in response to his lifelong friend Anna Marie's tragic death on a jet ski at the age of 17 in 2006. He mentioned during an interview that Anne was one of the nicest people he's ever met and she was taken too soon. About a year later, he watched the movie Dead Poets Society, and when he heard of Carpe Diem, he thought there was no better time than now to make his life extraordinary. He realized that eventually he's going to pass too, and not too long after that he decided what he really wanted to do in life. He began to dedicate all of his time to preparing himself for his journey. That included doing research on other people that have done exactly what he wants to do. Mainly the two people he looked into was Stephen Newman and Carl Bushby. He wasn't seeking fame or purpose, he was just doing it for the sake of doing something. Just before his 26th birthday, he embarked on his journey with only 60 pounds of equipment and a wheeled cart. However, it did not take him long to realize that the cart was too heavy and awkward, so he switched to a baby stroller. Before this, his only experience was a 10-day walk on the Appalachian Trail. He spent most of his time trying to figure out how to carry less gear with him, without missing all the necessities. He was glad that he started his journey in the US because it was the perfect atmosphere for figuring out all the kinks. His main issue was trying to figure out how much to eat in one day, because if he didn't eat enough it would heavily affect him the next day. However, he had it figured out about after 5 months. He experienced his fair share of aches and pains in his knees and ankles, but that was expected with this kind of journey. He also discovered, like many hikers, that reducing the weight of his gear was a great method to lessen his discomfort. He grew very grateful of the stroller because it allowed him to carry a laptop, a tent, and a camera. Tom set out on this journey in the intent of doing it completely solo. However, after an encounter with a creepy man and some loneliness, he decided to stop at an animal shelter in Texas. That's where he met Savannah. She was dumped on the side of the road before being taken to the shelter. It took her a few weeks to lose the fear of traffic and cars, but after a while she started to act like the journey was her life's purpose. Tom said she felt like family and is a great dog to him. He didn't realize that some days she was his motivation to keep going, because she walks in the snow, heat, rain, and up mountains for about 20 miles a day. There were some days that he didn't feel like going because he felt bad, but she was ready to go even if she didn't feel like it. He said, "I'm madly in love with her, almost like she's my daughter." By far in Mexico was the scariest part of the trip. One day he pitched his tent near violent gang territory. A man came up to him with a machete, but he was only looking for someone who stole his cow. Luckily, he didn't suspect Tom. When he arrived in Peru, there was a restaurant that he was planning at stopping at because there was a shrine for Stephen Newman. There was an old man sitting in there, and he had a note from Bushby, and it was exactly what he needed to hear that day, but it wouldn't have meant anything if he didn't already walk for a year and a half. He then flew to Antarctica briefly, then to Europe, then he made his way through Asia, then he flew to Australia, then he went to the west coast of the US, and then he walked back to New Jersey. There are way too many highlights to mention everything, but one of his most memorable moments was his 30th birthday in Georgia, the country, where he stayed in a hotel and ate at a very nice restaurant. Of course, with every journey there were the lowlights as well, mainly the time that he had to fly back home for 7 months after catching an infection. He was debating on even bringing Savannah because he wasn't sure how she would react to everything changing so fast, but ultimately she ended up going with him because he said that is his best friend and walking companion. In total, they walked more than 25,000 miles through 38 nations and 6 continents. He became the 10th person to walk around the world, and she became the first dog.